every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
You need the right people in the right place at the right time. And sometimes you have the right people in the right place, but at the wrong time.
I've got to keep going forward. I've got to keep looking for revenue streams. I've got to keep looking for growth, keep looking at new ways of doing things.
But, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development program I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated. Yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk.
Hello, I'm Granger Forson, and welcome to this week's episode of ScaleUp Radio. This week, I'm speaking to John Fisher of Westway IT, who specialises in looking after the IT needs of micro and small businesses. What's interesting is hearing John's reason for starting his business. It starts with redundancy, but has evolved while working with his core values, one of which is about loyalty. As always, there are some great takeaways from our conversation, including grab the opportunity that present themselves to you. Don't be afraid of failing. That's not to say you shouldn't be reckless, but try not to be overcautious. The power of peer-to-peer networking to strengthen your network and broaden your knowledge base, not just your customer base. And building on a set of values of education, loyalty, and quality relationships. What I feel is really fascinating in our conversation is hearing just how the core values of the business are so vital to John and Westway IT. Also, he doesn't want the relationship between him and his clients to be purely transactional. He wants a proper working relationship with them. I know that even though you may not be in the IT industry, you'll find something of real value from this episode. So let's go over and hear John. Hello, John Fisher, and welcome to ScaleUp Radio. And we'd like to introduce yourself and your business to our audience.
Thank you, Granger. I'm John. I run a company called Westway IT based in Gloucestershire, looking after micro and small businesses with their IT support and IT service needs.
So how did you start the business? What made you do that, and how long have you been running?
Well, it was redundancy in 2018 that kick-started it, because I was working in another IT company before, built up relationships with clients, and one of my core values is loyalty, and I had a loyalty to the clients I previously worked with, so they weren't left in the lurch. I started up to provide a continuation of service for them.
Wow. So how did that go about? I mean, that was quite an interesting decision to make. What made you do that, and how did you achieve that? Because most people don't start with a book of customers. So interesting.
It's one of those very rare things that if you don't do it, you're not going to have that opportunity come up again. So it was either grab it and run with it and see what happens, or that was it, move on completely. I thought, looked at some of the numbers, I think I can do it, so let's have a go at it.
And how did you approach the company that you've been made redundant from doing that? Didn't they already have a book of customers? How did you get that book of customers from them?
They were actually quite supportive in helping me get running because they were ceasing trading.
Ah, okay. So they were ceasing trading. That's interesting. So maybe that's something we can explore. Your learnings from that later on in terms of that. But so you were there in 2018. You've taken that big heroic leap of if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. You got a book of customers. So how did you go about negotiating with this closing company in terms of getting that book of customers and then bringing them on board?
Pretty much it was go have a chat with them all, sign them over. There's no non-compete. We're ceasing, so we'd rather those customers also have a good result.
So
the previous owner did help me get launched as well, so it was all a very nice changeover.
Wow, what a golden opportunity in terms of that. So
exactly, not one to pass up.
Yeah. So how many of those existing customers then came on to the new business and joined Westway IT?
I was only going after the IT side because the previous business did software as well. Not what I'm interested in, so I only continued working with, and it ended up being the majority of the IT customers.
So 2018, you started with a nice little block of customers. You must have had an idea in terms of your business model and what you're going to do. Give us a description of what the business model maybe was, and has it evolved and changed over the last few years?
Initially, it was a continuation of how I'd been working previously. So I knew how that was set up, so I could hit the ground running, and then I had sort of time to morph and mold things as I went on, becoming more into what in our industry we call MSP, managed service provider models. Most other businesses would consider it IT support company. We've had a progression into being less what we call break fix, very reactionary, sort of fighting fires, to working with businesses to basically be more proactive, planning, making them more productive, and more than just firefighting.
So what sort of extra services then does that start to bring into play, rather than just fixing and setting up new computers?
Well, if I was just fixing and setting up new computers, I wouldn't get involved in things like Microsoft 365, productivity solutions. I wouldn't be involved in sort of cybersecurity. The most that would be an off-the-shelf box product. Here's a license for a year. See you in 12 months when I ask you if you want to renew. Not really the relationship I want to have. I want something a lot more with the companies I work with.
So an interesting concept there. So you're talking about a relationship with your customers in terms of doing it. Where did that come from? Was that originally in your business plan? Was that something that has evolved over the last few years?
It's a shift we've had in the IT industry. The MSP has been around a little while under a few different guises, and it's evolved, and it's at the point that it's really flourishing now. There's quite a ecosystem within the IT world for companies like myself supporting end customers.
And in terms of an ecosystem, what that helps you to help your customers? What do you mean by that?
Exactly.
Okay, so is that software and systems, or is that ways of working, or what sort of things?
Both of them.
Okay.
We've got. We're quite an open industry, talking between ourselves, sharing ideas, what works, what doesn't work. So we've got our peer communities, we've got our sort of service provider companies that do our software and systems. They like to share resources. A lot of them also put on peer events as well to share knowledge, ideas, and a nice phrase I've heard is a rising tide lifts all boats. And with sharing more knowledge and getting better in our industry, it helps all IT companies get better.
And is that something that you've got involved with because of the development of your business and your business model, or is that something that was already there and you knew about it and tapped into it?
Some of it I tapped into at the beginning. Some of it I've joined later on as I've discovered more of these peer groups, communities. So it has been a discovery process as well, finding them. And some of them are also quite new in terms of years. So what makes you different? You described at the beginning about focusing on micro businesses. So what makes you different? Why would people come to Westway IT? A lot of being different because IT companies at the end of the day offer very similar results. It's down to people. I've got a very sharing knowledge, educating approach, which may be different from some companies. I'd rather help you rather than just fix it and take your money. There's also aspects of the micro businesses are kind of in a gap between sort of the break fix companies that are still out there and the larger IT service companies that tend to service larger companies. So they end up in a bit of a underserved gap where they might either be on the side of not having a great service with all the sort of parts that a modern business is after to be productive and secure, or they're too small for what they really need to have in their business. So I try and help those micro businesses in that gap as much as I can. So you talk about sharing knowledge and education, helping your clients achieve more in terms of doing things. And right back at the beginning, you talked about the values of loyalty. So it's interesting in terms of that sort of comes through. So what would you define as your values then in terms of business? Education is one of them. There's loyalty I mentioned. I want to have quality relationships with the companies I work with. I don't want negativity. I want to have positive relationships with all of my customers. So those are my three biggest values: education, loyalty, and quality relationships. Well, that's really interesting in terms of from an IT company in terms of doing that. So how do you put those in practice? What sort of things do you help with your clients that enriches those values for yourselves and for them? Just some examples. With education, I share knowledge each week through emails to the business owners I support. So that's always educating them around a new topic that could make their business a bit more secure, ideas for productivity. With the quality relationships, it's being able to go in, be friendly, have a chat with them in the office, and see how we can help them. And the loyalty is being there to help them and not being negative from our side as well. There is, of course, the caveat of we want those quality relationships. So if we do come across a relationship that turns toxic, we would want to, in a nice way, part ways, because it's not going to be good for either party having a continued negative relationship.
Right. Yes. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's not often that values are thought about so early on in the development of a business. They're things that grow in terms of doing that. So the fact you thought about it and how you do that is really interesting straight away. So let's just explore a bit more interesting for our listeners in terms of, so I imagine the IT service provider world is quite a big market. There's lots of competition. So give us, is there strong competition, and how do you stand above that and stand out?
Yeah, there is competition. You can have simple resellers selling a lot of the products that I do as a sort of more complete package. You can have the companies like myself and the more break-fix ones I mentioned earlier as well. So there's different levels of IT support you can get for your business. I like the higher end of that because ultimately it's going to be better for the businesses. They're going to be more productive and they're going to be more secure overall because it's a more complete sort of service. It's not going in once in a blue moon when something breaks. It is much more continuous. There's more checking in and dialogue and building up that relationship. It's not transactional.
And is that a trend in the marketplace, or is that something that you're sort of trying to lead into it? What are the changes that are taking place?
It's certainly a trend I'm following. I'm not the first, and I certainly won't be the last company in this sort of model.
And what other sorts of trends do you see in the IT service marketplace?
There's a lot of trends around trying to automate more processes, making companies able to work more efficiently. And there's a lot of conversations about cybersecurity, which is a ever-evolving aspect as well. That if we don't sort of keep our knowledge up on and share best practices and recommend them, we're doing our clients a disservice because we're not helping them as much as we can.
So cybersecurity, I've been on one of your webinars. Is very interesting in terms of that. So why has cybersecurity become such a major thing? And does the small business owner really think about it? So 2 questions for you.
Well, let's start with, is it a thing for small businesses to worry about? The answer, in short, is yes. And we know that because the UK government does an annual cybersecurity survey. And in their figures for their 2022 report, 4 in 10 businesses reported that they were a victim of a cyber attack within the report period. And that does include small businesses. It's not just big businesses that are targeted. Small businesses can fall victim sometimes more easily, especially when the biggest cyber attack is business email compromise. You might think of it more as phishing emails or somebody trying to get into your emails. That accounted for 84% of the reported attacks in the cybercrime report. So it's an awful lot. And those attacks are just sent out so wide, any business can be affected at any size. And with small businesses, there is a myth of I'm too small to be a target. who's going to be interested in me. At the end of the day, they're after money or important data, or using you as a leapfrog to get into a bigger company. That's one of your clients or suppliers. And then for you, you take a hit financially, you take a hit reputationally. That can be really damaging for businesses.
Yes, I can see that. So 84% of the attacks are phishing emails. Interesting, turns out. So what catches people out then in these type of emails? You know,
Well, that's a really difficult question to answer because the sophistication of some of them are so good. It is very difficult to tell legitimate emails apart from these targeted phishing emails, especially when they've successfully got into somebody's mailbox and they're actually sending as them. So you can't even say it's a different email address because it is from the actual person's account, but it's not really them.
Yeah. So if I've clicked on one of those and I'm in trouble, there's been a growth in sort of cyber insurance and those sort of things. But as a client of yours, how would you then help me if I've got this problem?
The best thing is trying to limit the risk in the first place by enabling things like multi-factor authentication, which so many platforms have, but so many people don't enable. And it can dramatically reduce the risk of successful password stealing attacks. Awareness is the other one that really makes a difference, because when you're more aware of what to look out for, you're less likely to fall victim to a scam. Afterwards, this is where having good logging and recording of data allows us to actually go in and get a view of what's happened, what have they accessed. If they're taking your password, first action, of course, will be changing your password, because we don't want them to stay in your account. But there's other things we also need to check. We've got a rule for all of our clients that disables forwarding of emails to an external address. Not everyone will have that. So one of the first things to check will be to see if they have set up a forwarder, so they're taking your emails even after you've changed your password and sending them off to their own account. And they're usually set up rules as well to hide their activity. So they automatically delete emails where their keywords have been put in the message, or they just hide all your incoming emails and you just think it's a very quiet morning.
Right. So we like to explore, the business growth and how you've developed and what you've been at in terms of doing things. So let's just go back to that start. It was really interesting in terms of doing that. You said that without naming names or anything else, and confidentiality, but the organisation you're in failed. So did you learn anything from that as you were starting and thinking about the design of your business?
The big takeaway I had was keep a careful eye on the numbers. That's what killed that business. So the eye was taken off the numbers, and when it was unpicked, it was getting worse and worse. So I like to keep a good eye on what's going on. Zero is great because I've got it set up in a management account style, so I can see where I'm spending money and where I'm making money as well.
So financial numbers, any other numbers that are important for you to keep an eye on?
Ones that I've thought of more recently, thanks to sort of the peer groups I'm part of, is not undervaluing yourself, putting your prices up, and that's now an annual thing that I do every year.
Excellent. So money in, money out, keeping a close eye on it in terms of doing that. Anything else that you track within your business?
being an IT company, we get what we call tickets, issues or service requests. So keeping an eye on where the majority of them come from is good to see what we spend our time doing. And that can lead to what can we do to make this more efficient? Can we automate part of it with scripting, or use another tool that will do the job better to improve our service delivery? So it's more repeatable, more process driven, and less prone to having sort of oddities appear.
So you make yourself more efficient through automation. Yes, and being an IT company, yeah, that's really good. Do you help your clients along that journey?
Yeah, we work with things such as Microsoft's Power Automate, because we're a Microsoft 365 shop. Using that, we can do various things with their file shares and their emails, forums, so we can put in automations with those, and that can be extended to talk to other software they use as well.
So in terms of your journey so far, in terms of developing and growing your business, what's gone right, what's gone wrong?
What's gone wrong, it was probably I did not get involved in the sales and marketing early enough, not immerse myself in how to do it right for me. I've got far more into that since, learned sort of what I can do, what I can't do, and it is an evolving area, finding what does still work, trying new things. So that's gone from a what doesn't work to now something that is working more so well. I've got my numbers of what I hope to achieve, so I can use that to work backwards to look at what sort of activity I need to engage in to try and hit those numbers. And thanks to you, Granger, for a fantastic strategy session recently, where I went over all those numbers and got them all on paper on the BizSmart web.
Yes, it was a great discussion and a real insight into your thoughts and your direction for your business. Yeah, and it was a very hot day as well. So you're experimenting and developing your marketing approach. So any tips so far? What works for you?
Well, the one I've just started on, and you were one of our first participants, is the webinars. So another way of sharing information to other business owners. So I've got a program of webinars I'm going to be hosting over the next few months, looking at cybersecurity again, but also the Power Automate software. So what I'm trying out at the moment, and you were a participant of recently, is getting into webinars, another way of sharing knowledge with other business owners. So you were at the cybersecurity webinar I did, and over the next few months, I've got other ones planned looking at different tools you got available in Microsoft 365 you might not know about, the Microsoft Power Automate, how we can use that to create simple automations that can streamline some of your operations quite quickly and easily, and ones that you can have a go at building yourself.
And have they been successful so far in terms of finding new people to talk to and to think about educating?
Well, I've only hosted the one so far, so
okay.
it's early days.
Okay.
But I'm hoping, from what I've heard from my peers in the IT industry, that webinars are a very effective marketing tool, because it's a value-driven activity. We're not there selling, we're there sharing knowledge to help other businesses.
Excellent. So at the moment it's just John Fisher and Westway IT. You've got your growth plans in terms of what you're doing. So we've worked together to look at that. So when you start to think about your first hire, how would you think you'll go about ensuring that your values and your ways of working are matched by the people that you recruit?
It's going to come from a few things: interview process, selection, refinement. Ultimately, it's probably going to be difficult to have the crystal ball and see if they will be an exact fit. So some of it will be a try and see and learn. I know from working with a VA, the very first VA I worked with, I made mistakes in sort of working with them. So when I had my second VA, because the original stopped working with the service I was using, I had learned from those mistakes and was able to work a lot more efficiently with them. And there are things I've learned from that, such as a weekly catch-up, that anyone who joins the team, it will be a team catch-up on a Monday morning.
Excellent. And that's a bit of advice we give to small business owners, to try VA routes, experiment with your knowledge and how you're going to have those processes work maybe before you recruit people, because that way you can test those out. So yeah, brilliant. So you said you use Xero. How often do you look at your cash in terms of and understand the situation of it?
I have the mobile app open usually a few times a week and just have a look through it. Naughtily, usually morning or an evening outside of the working hours.
Yes, we never let go, do we? So, what do you love the most in your business?
I do like making a difference to other businesses, helping them be successful and being awesome. I love being able to explore new technology and try different things as well, because I love learning myself.
And in the IT industry today, in terms of the service industry, what really frustrates you?
Effectively, it's IT companies offering good advice and not coming up short, keeping their own house in order. For example, at the moment in the US, we know that an IT service company has had 50 servers compromised. We don't know who that company is, but the hackers have publicly said, we've got 50 servers of a company, which is nightmarish for any IT service company. And has enough actually been done to protect those systems. It's not saying that put the protections in place and you'll always be fine. There's always a risk. But if you have cheaped out, done the bare minimum or nothing at all, it causes problems for other IT companies. Sure. Something else from the US where some IT service companies have been sued because they weren't strong enough in recommending security protections and actions to take to their clients. And they were held liable for the costs incurred, which is, again, really scary as a provider. So we've got to be stronger and better in the advice we give.
So I suppose to sum that, what you're really talking about is what frustrates you is IT companies not actually doing what they say they should be doing. So they may give advice, but they don't do it themselves.
Or they don't give enough advice.
Yeah. I can remember a number of years ago when Sony PlayStation, their online systems were hacked. And when it really came out, they discovered that actually the Sony board had not spent the money on the security systems that they should have done because they didn't want to, they didn't realize that it would cause that problem. But actually, it was just about money. It wasn't about keeping their clients safe. So not doing what you should be doing. Okay, brilliant. Okay, thanks for that. In terms of your journey so far, some key lessons that you've learned along the way as your business has grown and developed.
Time management is certainly one. Love the calendar. There's innovations I've put in place. Scheduling tools are fantastic. If I get a service request come in, can you do this? I can send them a link and they can book the remote session or even a site visit straight into the calendar at a time that's suitable to them, but it knows when I've got the availability. So that removes back and forth discussions for me, making me more efficient and allowing me to then schedule my days better. Surrounding myself with peer groups and advice from other IT companies and previous IT company owners has been invaluable. I've gleaned so much information from reading what they write, talking with them, taking part in discussions. It's great to know some of the mistakes and some of the best things to do, so you can then take those and make it your own.
Excellent, and which actually keeps coming back to one of your values of education, really. So it's not just what you help your customers with; it's who you are and what you like to do, and you can see that coming out. So if we were to meet in 5 years from now, if we were to look back, if we're sitting here talking and we're looking back at the last 5 years, what's happened both professionally and personally for you to make these next 5 years, those just gone by, a success?
Well, hopefully by that point I'd have a team, so I'd be doing this myself so I can engage more with clients and educating them and being more of a speaker, sharing knowledge with the community. And that does personally as well, making me sort of feel more valuable to the local community too.
Brilliant. And what's going to get in your way over the next 5 years, do you think, that would hinder you to get there? So what have you got to get over and get solved?
Well, there's the ever-changing marketplace as things change. COVID was a massive acceleration in that industry, where people went remote working and video calls overnight. We might get similar shifts like that in the future. That has taken what was slowly happening and has just made sort of 5 years condensed down into months of change. So changing marketplace, cybersecurity is continuously changing as well as new threats are discovered and ways of working. For example, we're not just antivirus anymore, we're a much larger solution that takes in lots more layers of protection because antivirus on its own doesn't cut it anymore.
Super. John, it's been fantastic talking with you. It's been really interesting to see a really interesting start of a business, of actually having a book of clients to take with you and learning from a business that failed, and a really good discussion around your values. And actually we can see those values through this conversation just come out in terms of, you're sharing your knowledge, your education, your loyalty, and the quality of relationships that you want with your clients is absolutely brilliant. So the focus on cybersecurity and really helping educating people to understand the importance of that, and through that then the growth and development of your business. I love the feedback in terms of looking for automation and tools to make your lives easier, with yourself, but also with your customers. So, a really fascinating talk in terms of doing that. What I always like to finish with is a few quick fire rounds. So just after short answers from yourself in terms of this. Okay. So let's have a go. If you were to go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Possibly buy Bitcoin early on and cash it in.
Which books would you recommend to our listeners?
There's many great books. Quite an interesting one is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Super. I don't know that one. Oh, great. What podcasts do you recommend?
Mine are very IT industry specific, but a few other interesting ones are cybersecurity based, but designed for a wider audience. Hacking Humans and Darknet Diaries.
Oh. And what apps do you have on your phone that give you the most?
I guess it's my sort of work management one that does my time tracking when I'm out and about. Without that, I wouldn't know what to accurately bill. But there's also my mileage tracker as well, which automatically knows when I'm out and about in the car. So that makes expense reporting so much easier. Although I don't open that one very often, it's always running.
Brilliant. Who's been the most influential business leader on you?
The most influential, I would put that down to actually Paul Green, who is a MSP marketing expert. And
John, how can people get hold of you?
They can get hold of me by having a look on my website, westwayit.co.uk. To book a 15-minute call with me, they can go to westwayit.co.uk/15 and you'll see my live calendar. Brilliant.
Well, John, it's been a fantastic conversation today. There's lots of great points and thoughts in there. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Granger.
Don't forget to take a look at www.bizsmart.co.uk to access a great range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey. So that's bizsmart.co.uk, which is bizsmarts.co.uk.